Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to explore a thrilling psychological mystery, one that happens while you are completely 100% awake. Today, we're looking at how the mind can act as its own high-definition projector, creating these incredibly vivid and beautiful animations right before your eyes. Seriously, it challenges everything we think we know about how we actually see the world.
To truly grasp this, I want you to picture looking across your room right now. You're just sitting there totally relaxing, and suddenly, clear as day, you see a complete stranger standing right there in your physical space.
And we aren't just talking about some blurry, shadowy figure out of the corner of your eye. No way. You can clearly see the intricate details of their face. You can literally see the exact cut, the color, and the fabric of the specific clothes they're wearing, all rendered in absolute perfect detail. You notice the precise details of their body, too. And this hallucination, it can even scale up way beyond a single person. Like, you might look out your window and see an entire fully realized building that you know for an absolute fact does not actually exist in your neighborhood. But here is the wildest, maybe most terrifying part of all this. Despite this incredibly real-looking apparition, you are entirely awake. You are not asleep, you aren't dreaming, and you are definitely not losing your mind. You're perfectly sane. The person, or that building, simply isn't there.
So this jarring, almost cinematic experience happens in a fascinating condition called Charles Bonnet syndrome. It typically crops up in individuals who are experiencing significant vision loss. But instead of just seeing darkness or blurriness, their brain starts generating these incredibly vivid, unprompted visual hallucinations. These hallucinations are honestly like high-budget, striking visual animations. We are talking about a massive variety of scenes here, anything from a group of elegantly dressed strangers just casually hanging out in your living room to a tiny animal scuttling across the floor, or, like we mentioned, a sudden building that appears out of nowhere and then just vanishes.
Now here's an absolutely crucial point. People with this condition usually know perfectly well that what they're seeing isn't physically there. They haven't lost touch with reality at all. They can logically deduce that, hey, this elegantly dressed Victorian family in my very modern living room is a hallucination, even though the visual experience itself is completely indistinguishable from reality.
To really understand why this happens, we have to look at how vision actually works. We usually think our eyes see the world, right? But actually, your eyes are basically just cameras that collect light and convert it into electrical signals. It's your brain that is the powerful computer, processing that raw footage into the reality you perceive. You don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain interpreting the data from your eyes.
So imagine that camera suddenly starts failing. Because of vision loss, the eyes begin sending way less information to the computer. The incoming image gets blurry, it gets dark, it's incomplete. Your brain is sitting there, constantly waiting for visual data, but there just isn't enough coming in through the feed. And when deprived of this input, the visual areas of the brain don't just shut down or throw up a blank screen. They are still highly active and totally capable of creating images. It's kind of like the brain just says, well, the visual information coming from the eyes is no longer enough, so I will create the rest. It becomes a master animator, stepping in to fill those gaps itself. Essentially, your brain turns into an internal animation studio. It's like an over-caffeinated artist who literally refuses to stop working. It starts generating its own breathtaking, dynamic scenes. And this scales up, right? It goes from producing simple patterns and vivid colors, all the way up to rendering highly detailed faces, full-bodied people, animals, and entire intricate environments. The reason these hallucinations feel so incredibly detailed and persistent is because the brain is actively creating these images, and because of the vision loss, the eyes simply aren't providing enough real-world information to override or stop this internal animation studio. The brain's internal generation is basically going completely unchecked by external reality. What is truly captivating here is that these internal creations get incredibly specific. The brain doesn't just put out random static. It might render a row of houses, a lush, vibrant garden completely filled with flowers, people wearing highly detailed historical clothing from another era, or maybe animals that seem completely out of place for an indoor setting. But the brain isn't just randomly hallucinating out of nowhere. It's following a specific process. It actively takes pieces of information, accessing visual memories and drawing on known patterns stored deep inside your mind to intricately construct and animate a scene your eyes can no longer fully show you. In a really beautiful, kind of strange way, the brain isn't simply failing or malfunctioning when it does this. It is furiously trying to do what it has always done, what it literally evolved to do,
which is to make sense of the world around you. The brain absolutely hates a void, so it fills that void with its own breathtaking creations. Ultimately, Charles Bonnet syndrome forces a complete paradigm shift in how we understand our own minds. It reveals this extraordinary truth that we don't just passively see reality while our brain simply sits back and watches a live feed. Our perception of the world is so much more active than we ever realized.
Instead of being a passive observer, your brain is constantly constructing your experience of reality. Think of it like a giant puzzle. It dynamically combines the actual light signals from your eyes with your deeply stored visual memories, your moment-to-moment expectations, and the context of your surrounding environment. It weaves all of these sources together into one continuous, vivid, and beautiful animation that you experience as the real world.
Now, most of the time, this internally generated model matches the sensory information coming from your eyes perfectly. But when that sensory input drops, well, your brain, which is an incredibly powerful, unstoppable image-making machine, simply steps up to animate the experience itself.
So, the next time you look around a room, keep this in mind. You aren't just transparently seeing the world exactly as it objectively is. Your brain is actively building the version of the world that you experience. Your eyes might provide the raw data for sure, but it is entirely your brain that creates the reality you inhabit.
And honestly, this leaves us with a fascinating, maybe even a little unsettling thought. If your brain can effortlessly spin up such lush, gorgeously animated scenes, like rendering elegantly dressed strangers and vibrant flower gardens, just because the visual data dropped a bit, you really have to ask yourself, what else is your brain building right now that you just assume is real?